Sup, Internet World? It's Wyatt here reporting to you from Savannah Studios here in Los Angeles, California. Today, let's talk about mastering. Now, mastering and mixing are two very different things, two very different approaches. For people that are just entering the music production world, I can see how these terms could be confusing. When you talk about mixing or you hear of mixing, mixing is compiling multiple audio sources and stems, tracks, and mixing all of them into a cohesive end product. So when you think of a mix, think of it as a multi-track session that includes effects, instruments, EQ, compression, leveling out the entire session into a mix. That's what mixing is. Now, a master is taking that actual stereo mix, the final mix, and touching it up so it sounds the best it can once it hits streaming platforms or vinyl or cassette or whatever platform it is that the music's going to be on. That mastering affects the overall volume of the song, the overall EQ of the song, the overall impact, low end, high end. You get what I'm saying. So there's two very different approaches. I find with mastering, less is more, and I think it's all about the small moves. I think that's also in line with mixing, but there's not a lot of automating or effects, EQ. There's not as much processing involved in the mastering end, whereas you're doing a lot more of that on the mixing end of things. So in this video, I'm going to show you a very quick and simple way you can understand mastering and how I mastered one of my songs last year. You can do this in any DAW. You don't have to have any special plugins. There's a few aspects to mastering that are very important. One being EQ, the second being compression, and the third being the overall volume output of your song. All of those are in correlation with each other and equal a great mix that translates well on all platforms. So let's dive into Pro Tools here, and I'll show you a quick and easy, simple way you can master your songs. Let's do it. Howdy, folks. We are inside of Pro Tools here. We have a song that I mastered and recorded about 2 years ago. I did a very simple mastering approach, all in the box. You can do this really with any software and in any DAW. Mastering doesn't have to be rocket science. It's a very simple process. Like I said before, the main difference between mixing and mastering is that the mastering process is basically like the final frontier. What you're doing is processing the final mix as a whole, right here as you can see, as a stereo wave. You're basically giving it an entire EQ and volume, and you're just getting it to where it's going to sound the best it can on whatever platform it's going to be. You know, in current day, I would say the most valuable being Spotify streaming platforms. And I'm going to explain to you how to do that and how to approach a master if this is your first time or if you're just getting into mastering. I'm going to keep it very simple. And like I said, you can use any plugins. The major ones being EQ, compression, and limiting. I'll make a different video on the difference between a compressor and a limiter, but just bear with me throughout this video. We'll use very simple concepts here. So I'm going to play you the song. This is unmastered. All the plugins are in bypass. I like to, when I do a master, I like to have the unmastered track here with nothing on it, completely raw, the way it was sent to me, and I'll create a master fader, which you can do in Pro Tools. You just, you create a track as a stereo master, and I will basically label unmastered, mastered, and I will use the master bus to do the mastering processing and the volume control. So I'll play the song for a little bit, unmastered, and you can see where we're starting off with.
can't get it, I won't get enough. It's Cherry Rose. This is Cherry Rose again.
So it's a very, it's a clean sounding mix. To me, it's missing the shine. There's a shininess to kind of that era of rock and roll sounding music that's just missing in this song. I'm going to achieve the shine I want with using a few different EQs. I'm going to try and tighten the mix up with the compressor, and I'm basically going to get the volume really nice and cranking so it can compete volume-wise with other masters. So usually the first thing that I will pop up on a master is some sort of EQ, and this looks very weird. It looks wacky. What I like to do when I approach a master is to first find the frequencies, and you should be able to tell instinctually when listening to the master what sounds weird to you. I knew going into this, and from listening to that clip there's some mid-range boxiness going on. There's a little bit of crosstalk between the vocal and the guitar, a little crosstalk between the ambiance of the drum kit and the bass guitar. So I kind of trying to address that the best I can with this EQ. I'm basically pulling out some of these frequencies I think will add more headroom after I process it. So I'll go in and I'll show you each frequency so you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So that's 500, well, close to 500 hertz. A lot of buildup there, as you can tell. Let me bring this up so you can see what I'm talking about.
Baby, wanna call you up, but you leave me hanging on the phone.
You know, a lot of buildup there. It's kind of got that submarine tank frequency, which is never a good sign. These also, I'm assuming, are going to be... This isn't an older master, so I'm revisiting this. These are probably similar weird either whistling frequencies or that submarine tank type frequency that just doesn't need to exist in the master. You know, not the greatest frequency. Doesn't need to be as prominent. Yuck. This one's not terrible. And I don't know why I pulled that one out. Let's see.
Don't pretend you never knew all the things you said.
Yeah, see, with these upper frequencies, sometimes, you know, I did a lot of, actually this entire EP was all in the box, a lot of digital processing. And when you get up past, you know, this 10K, 12K zone, things can start to sound very digital, very stale, very quickly. So I think my reasoning for pulling this out was to kind of add a little more warmth to the mix. So I'm going to put this in and out of bypass so you can see what it's done, the entirety of the plugin. To me, huge difference. It adds so much more headroom to the mix. There's less competition going on between the guitars, especially to me, the low mids of the guitars with the drums seems way tighter to me. And it has a lot to do with this, as well as, you know, the guitars up here with the synth, everything. It really does sound more cohesive. From there, I'm hitting a virtual tape machine, basically just to add a color to the whole mix. It's very subtle. I do like what it does to the high end. I think it kind of does what I was trying to do with this frequency here, where it kind of can dull that uber digitaliness up in this upper register here, like, you know, 12, 14, 15K and above. It just kind of softens the frequencies up there a lot, and it does a nice thing to the low end. So I'll punch this in and out of bypass so you can see what I'm talking about. it just does a nice thing. It's hard to tell with a plugin like this what it's exactly doing, but my guess is that it's rolling off some of the uber highs and it's giving a bump in the lower registers, maybe between 60 and 100 hertz. It's really nice. From there, I'm hitting another EQ. This one's doing a lot of the boosting, not really any cutting. This is more of a broadband equalizer, what I like to call a sweetener. And basically, I'm trying to achieve the shine with this plugin here. As you can tell, there's different frequency points. This is a Pultec style EQ. These are all the different frequency points, and you can basically attenuate, also known as cutting, or you can boost frequencies. I typically, I do a little bit of cutting here and there, but really I'm boosting the 10K, which is a really nice spot for this song, and getting a little more low end out of the 60 hertz. Sometimes just running the signal or the master through this Pultec without even touching any knobs does something really nice to the low mid range. So to me, it's a plugin I've used for years on masters. Well, I shouldn't say years, maybe the last 2 years. And so yeah, I'll plug this in and out. You'll see it's a pretty noticeable difference in the overall shininess of the song. I mean, yeah, huge difference. A lot of color. I'm going a step further with adding just a tiny bit. The thing is, I could go more shiny with that plugin, but you lose a natural sense of the shine when you can use it in tandem with a different type of EQ. I would say do smaller moves with do smaller moves with more plugins, because you get a little more of a natural sound and a little more, I guess, just a natural shine or whatever it is. If you're trying to add grit to the master, it's easier to use multiple plugins to acquire the same thing. So with this, it's another saturation plugin. Basically 2 saturation plugins. This one's emulating a tube preamp. It's a little weird to use on a master, but I felt like it added a bit of a chunkiness that I liked. And then it's hitting this virtual, console strip, which adds, it's very subtle. It adds kind of a little bit of compression, a little bit of overdrive to the mix. And then I'm hitting this EQ. I'm adding just a touch of that 15K just to add a little tiny bit more shine. And then I needed help with the uber sub frequencies down in the 30 hertz. And I thought, bumping it would help with the aggressiveness of the kick drum a little more. So I'll put this in and out so you can see what this is doing. It's a little overly shiny, but that's the vibe I was trying to go for with the master. After listening to other songs from that era of music and comparing, I just really liked the shininess, that top end. So that's how I achieved it. From there, I'm pretty happy with the EQ. I'm pretty happy with the overall aggression of the song and the saturation of the song. Now, the final kind of notation you want to use on a master is the volume. And for a lot of people, this seems like a big, giant mystery. And I'll break it down for you very easily. Compressors and limiters they're going to make your song less dynamic because you're putting them in a box, so to speak. But what it does is allows you to crank the song louder, in a nutshell. So usually the last one or two plugins that I'll use on a master chain is a compressor and a limiter, or one or the other. In this case, I'm using a compressor. This is the compressor I'm using on the whole mix. It is a mastering type compressor. You want to use compressors that are bus compressors, stereo compressors, things that can handle entire mixes. An 1176 type compressor is not going to withstand an entire mix. And so you want to research a little bit on different types of compressors. And I'm going to make a video on different types of compressors. But just as a rule of thumb, try and stick, and there's no rules. You can use 1176s on a master. It'll probably sound badass. But to play it safe, something that I know will work is a bus style compressor, which means it's a stereo unit that has pinpoints of attack and release. So I'm using this SSL compressor here, medium attack. The auto release is a really nice feature on this. I like it on a master. And all this is doing is kind of coagulating the mix together, gluing it a little bit, adding a little more. It's kind of like if you're baking bread and, oh man, where am I going with this? It's like adding a little more flour to your dough. You know what I'm saying? Everything, you can get things to sing with each other a little nicer. It's pretty subtle. I'll plug it in and out, and you can see what's going. It's not something you want to overdo. Typically, I'm only hitting under 4 decibels of compression, usually 2 or 3. It's really a subtle, nice. It's a way the upper register and the lower register can kind of sing together. So I'll plug this in and out and let you guys see what's going on. It's subtle, but when you hear it being punched in, it adds this energy, this cohesiveness. It's almost like the glue to the entire mix, is how I like to put it. It really helps. It really helps. It might be hard to hear if you're listening on iPhone speakers or headphones, but if you're on some studio monitors, there's a stickiness that is really beautiful about a really good mastering compressor. Basically, from there is volume control. I want to get this thing pumping. I want it to be competitive. This is the limiter I'm using. It does have a compression module that I have turned off. I just didn't need it. So I'm using the limiter function. And basically, these knobs, I don't even really know exactly what they're doing. I know they're some sort of transient designer. To use your ears, what you think sounds good. The major aspect to getting a master at a very healthy, loud volume is looking at your RMS. This is the kind of the median output that your song is producing. In the standard is about 9 to 10 RMS is what I am educated as being the industry standard right now for volume. You want your mix to be hitting 9 to 10 RMS. You can find RMS plugins, meters. A lot of mastering limiters have it built in. And it's worth getting, if you're going to master yourself, it's worth having a plugin that shows you the RMS levels, because that's how you can really understand how loud your mix is. As you can see, these meters here have an RMS dial right here. It shows you the RMS. And the VU meters are biased at an RMS of 10. So what that means is the 0 in which this plugin is biased to is 10 RMS. So you could look at this VU meter and use this as a calculator for how loud your mix is. You want it hitting 0, basically. A little more is going to be in the 9 zone, which is fine, but you want to stick in this little area here. You can use the VUs, you can use the RMS leveler here. I typically use both, and I like the loudest sections of my song to be hitting about 9 RMS. People will tell you different things. A lot of it, is experimentation. There's times I've gone up into the 8 RMSs if I really want to squash something and have it be extremely loud. But the higher and more aggressive you limit your mix, you're going to diminish the dynamic content of your song. Sometimes it works out that is okay, and that's what you want. Other times, not so much. For a song like this, I like the dynamic range between the verse and the chorus. There's a lot of acoustic, electric played instruments. It's not much of an electronic or programmed song, and I like the dynamic nature of the song. So I'm trying to hit it more in the 10, maybe 9 tops. You're going to hear a massive volume difference. So if you want to turn your headphones down for this, you may want to do so. I will put this in and out so you can see what it's doing. This is really doing this is doing all the heavy lifting for the volume control.
Get it, I won't get enough.
This is probably blasting in your earphones. It's hard to do a mastering video without doing that. But huge difference. That's the final frontier right there is your limiter. And that's it. That's how I mastered the song. It's very simple. Normally I do my fade outs in the mixes. If you needed to do any sort of fades or cuts, a lot of times, if this is my own song, so I did all that when I mixed it. If a client has me master a song, I will typically, if it's not faded, I'll do the fade out. I'll chop off the beginning and the end, so it's a nice tight ending, and that's what I'll do, and I'll bounce it. It's really good to compare it with other songs. I like when people send me mastering references just so I can have an understanding of what they're going for. And that's it. What I'm going to do is plug in and out the entirety of the chain here. It's going to be a massive volume difference, but you can see kind of where we came to from this quiet, unmastered, mid-rangey kind of song into what I think is a pretty nice, shiny pop rock song. So here we go. Massive difference. And mastering, doesn't have to be rocket science. Major key points here. Use multiple equalizers. Find one that you like for taking frequencies away, and find ones you like that will boost frequencies. Try using saturation plugins. Find a great bus compressor or a limiter to allow your mix to be loud. I recommend using one that has an RMS meter on it so you can see how loud the average volume your mix is producing. Try and hit between 9 and 10 RMS. Listen to other masters that you like and compare how yours sounds in relation to that. Maybe yours isn't bright enough. Maybe yours is too bright. Use your ears and take the time to experiment. That's the whole fun of being a producer, mixing, and mastering engineer. That's it for me, folks. I'll be back next Friday with a video. Let me know if you have any questions. You can hit me up on my email, my website, YouTube. You can find all the links below. And have a great day. Adios.